Welcome to session number 2 of Understanding Spreadsheets as an Engineering Tool. In this session, we're going to go over functions. We're going to go through some of the very standard statistical functions like sum, min, max. We'll talk about smallest and largest. We'll talk about average. Then we're going to go on to some trigonometry. We'll talk about pi function and some of the standard trigonometric functions. So once again, hopefully you've downloaded the spreadsheet, training spreadsheet. Here is 2 columns of numbers. Look at this first column of numbers. It's just a random set of numbers here. This column over here is actually, I'm using a formula to go grab those. I wish those numbers had a border around them, so I'm going to grab them, put a border around it. Okay. A little nicer. Okay. I wish I knew what the sum of those were. So I'm going to type in a formula equals sum. Start parentheses. I'm going to grab the top one, and I'm going to use my mouse. I'm going to curve all the way down and grab all of the different cells and hit a close parentheses. And now I've made a formula, and when I go back and look at the formula, it says it's a sum of K24 colon K32. Well, clearly K is the column we're on. 24 was the first one, all the way down to 32. So I look across there, 24 to 32, so it knows the sum. Somebody out there right now is going, well, why don't I just take an average? If that's what we're trying to do, we want just an average of that column. Well, I can. I can come here and say I want to take, down here I'm going to go to formula. I wish I knew what the average, and this is pretty good about Excel and Open Office as well. I'm going to start typing in the formula, AVER, and it's telling me that I have these different functions I can pick. And that's the one I really want, is that average. Okay, so it knows what the thing is. And I'm going to start my parentheses. I'm going to grab the top one all the way down through that. I know what the average of those numbers are. That average of those numbers is 4.203. Remember, I can always go in here. The most number of digits I see there is 3. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change this down. So my average only reports 3 decimal places. Makes me feel a little better. I'm going to come up here again though. What I was asked though is I wanted to drop the biggest and the largest from these. Don't count those as part of the average. So how would I do that? I took a sum. I just did that. I wish I had a count. I wish I knew how many there was. Of course, I can always count them literally by hand, but I'm going to count them that way. It says, tell me, count how many non-empty cells are there in that row. And there's 9 of them. Okay, so come over here. I could always say, I wish I had the sum divided by the count. Sum divided by the count is 4.203. That's exactly what we got down here. That's the average. But that's not what they asked. They wanted me to drop the highest and the lowest. So I'm going to come in here and say, I wish I knew what's the minimum number. I know what the minimum is. I wish I knew what the maximum was. We'll type in max. Okay. And now, if I want to know the average if I drop them, I'm going to say, let me take the sum divided by, I'm going to take the sum of all of them. I'm going to subtract the minimum. I'm going to subtract the maximum and divide it by the count minus 2. Because I dropped the highest and the lowest, so I really have 9 minus 2, I really have 7 entries. So here's my new average. If I drop the highest and the lowest from that thing, I know what the average is. Okay, that's pretty good. Somebody out there is going, well, of course, I know it's 7. 7 is the biggest number. I can see that right off the bat. Well, what if you can't see it? It's hard to scan that list and know exactly what is the biggest number on that list. What's the smallest number on that list? It's hard to just look at it right away and go, What's the smallest? What's the biggest? In fact, I even missed the biggest. The biggest is actually 10.33. I missed that because it started with a 1. So it's better if you can put it in the spreadsheet. Now a human's not trying to scan that list. The spreadsheet's doing it. Okay, those are some pretty nice standard ones, but what if you wanted to know what the second largest and the second smallest was? So on this one, I can type in the word small, start parentheses, and it's asking me, and in fact, it's even give me a clue. It says, tell me the array, and then tell me what one you want to find. I want to know from this array, starting here to here, I want to know what the first smallest number is. There's another word for the first smallest. What's the first smallest number? The first smallest number is the minimum. Okay, I'm going to hit F2. I wish I knew what the second smallest number was. Second smallest number on this list is 1.167. What is the third smallest number on that list? The third smallest number on that list is 2. Just like small, I also have large. So I can type in large, grab the array, and say, I want to know what the first largest number is. The first largest number is the maximum. So that was good. Let me find the second one. Okay, so I could find the average. I could drop the minimum and max. I could drop the 2 lowest. Does this sound familiar to anybody? This is like we were calculating somebody's grade and we said drop the 2 lowest grades. So you would drop minimum and small comma 2 of an array, and you could drop the 2 lowest grades in a class. Okay, and a lot of times when you're doing statistics, somebody will tell you drop off the high, drop off the low. Okay. Let's talk about some trigonomic functions. One of the very first and the simplest trigonomic functions is, I wish I knew what pi was. And I'm sure there's some good nerds out there and geeks who can tell you that pi is 3.14159265359 and keep rattling off numbers. But what's nice about Excel and OpenOffice is we have a function, and the function is equals pi with no parameter. Just the open and close parentheses. And when you do that, it returns the value of pi, and it will return the value of pi. I can keep adding decimal places, and you'll notice it goes out to about 9 places. It goes out to 15 places. Okay, you notice the rest of them are all zeros. But close enough for us, more than close enough for us as an engineer. So that's the first function, is pi with no parenthesis, with no argument in the function. Okay. I'm going to take 30 degrees, and I wish I knew what the sine of 30 degrees. So that's a pretty easy formula. Equals sine of 30 degrees. And when I get that, instead of getting 0.5 like I was expecting, I actually got minus 0.988. Clearly something's wrong. Let me find out what the cosine of 30 degrees is. Okay, the cosine of that. Ooh, the cosine, that isn't any better. Let me find the tangent. No way, the tangent can't be negative. There's something really wrong. The reason was when you ask it to do trigonomic functions in Excel or OpenOffice, it uses radians. So to do 30 degrees, I have to use a formula. I have to change the 30 degrees into radians. And how do I do that? I multiply it by pi. So I take that number times pi and I divide by 180 degrees. Some people will say multiply by 2 pi and divide by 360. Technically that's correct. There are 2 pi in a full radius, in a full circle. I always think of though it as pi over 180. Okay, so now I've converted that 30 degrees into radians. Once I have radians, I can now ask it for the sine, cosine, and tangent, and I get all the numbers I was expecting. So formulas are pretty nice. They always start with a function, and as you notice when you start to type them in, it'll tell you what are the different things. In fact, if I start typing the word tangent, it's telling you that not only do I have tangent, but I also have the hyperbolic tangent functions available as well. Okay? I've barely touched the surface of functions. There's a lot more of them, but Good luck. Those are the simple ones. See you next time when we do a lookup table.